guys, Dr. Mike Israetel here for Renaissance Periodization and Juggernaut Training Systems. Talking to you about a couple of myths. Here's one of them, the myth of bro splits for muscle size. So first of all, what is a bro split? When I say it, a lot of you are going to be like, oh yeah, right? It's the idea that you train every major muscle group one time a week. You got chest day, International Chest Day, I think on Monday, right? So everyone who's serious into lifting knows not to come in bench on Monday because everyone else is benching, right? You got Tuesday legs, Wednesday back or whatever. Shoulders have their own, biceps have their own. That's been called a bro split recently, and it's what a lot of the stuff that appears in muscle magazines, and a lot of people subscribe to this method of training. At face value, doesn't seem to be anything wrong with it. You dedicate some time to a specific body part, lets you really focus, all fine and good. There are some very serious problems with that approach in the grand scheme of things, especially for those of us who want the absolute best results as far as muscle growth from our training. So here's the deal, a couple of points. First point, in the direct studies on muscle growth, and I mean direct, where they actually measure the rate of muscle growth that actually occurs, the building process at various time points after training, pretty much none of these studies have picked up muscle growing in any situation much longer than about 3 days. The idea that muscle can grow for a week is pretty much hogwash. It's never been supported mechanistically. It'd be very difficult to find out how exactly that would work. Most of the training studies actually show muscle growth lasts less time, between 1 and 3 days somewhere. So if muscle grows for, let's say 2 or 3 days after training, and you're waiting an entire week to train that muscle again, for some time that muscle is going to grow. Some of the rest of that week, the muscle is going to maintain in size. And then later towards the end of the week, you may even lose some of those gains you made so that you're not exactly starting back at the top of where you went, back at the top of the pyramid, you're starting a little bit lower. You're needlessly sacrificing size because you're waiting too long. And people say, it's not really a big deal. Well, imagine if we expanded it in just a thought experiment. You say that 1 week is how many times you need to train a muscle. Why not 2 weeks? Why not 4 weeks? Train legs every 4 weeks. Well, of course that sounds ridiculous. Of course you lose size. But it turns out because the data says muscle growth only lasts for 2 or 3 days, why would you wait a week? It's, in a conceptual sense, just as stupid as waiting 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, right? So if you want the best results, you should probably be training more frequently because muscle just literally doesn't grow for that much longer after training that makes us have to wait. Point number 2, and if you want to know more about point number 2 after I mention it, Chad Wesley-Smith has an excellent video on the stimulus recovery adaptation principle that's out already, and you can check that out to get a real more in-depth scientific approach. But basically, there are different parts of your physiology disrupted with training. The muscular side, the actual tissue itself is disrupted, but the nervous system is also disrupted. And yes, the nervous system can take up to a week, in a few cases longer than a week, to recover completely. So if you're going into the gym and just smashing it with crazy workouts, it can take you up to a week to feel like you really can train hard again. Here's the deal. Here's how we obviate that and train with higher frequencies to benefit from the shorter muscle growth window. Don't train at 100% at all times. Training should be an intelligent exercise in going in and accomplishing certain tasks, presenting an overload, but you don't have to smash yourself into bits. So if you train sub-maximally most of the time, not giving it your all, your nervous system doesn't really take a whole week to recover, and it could recover every several days just fine for you to present a good effort. In addition to that, if you vary your exercises within the week that you're hitting the same body part with, varying the intensities, varying the volumes, you get some days that are super, super overloading, super hard, other days that are moderately overloading, still give you a good growth response, and still other days that are a bit lighter and easier, more for recovery, so that you can continue to stimulate muscle growth multiple times a week, but you're never really giving it your all at any one time. That allows you to sum up more time actually growing muscle than just simply recovering from training. Point number 3. Yes, the bigger muscles may take up to 3 days, especially in larger individuals, to go through their entire growth cycle. Muscles like the pecs, quads, glutes, parts of your back, especially the spinal erectors. These are huge muscles that take a ton of disruption. They can take a while to grow. For them, you can train them twice a week. But the smaller muscles, forget it. Your biceps, your forearms, your medial and rear delts, probably your calves too, they're not going to take 2 or even 3 days of recovery. Their growth curves really occur every 1 or 2 days. So if you have a bicep day and you hit your biceps once, you are pissing away a ton of opportunities for missed growth. Biceps, rear delts, medial delts, they can be trained potentially 4 times a week with no problems whatsoever, and maybe even more frequently than that. Number 4, take-home recommendations for the average intermediate lifter. Someone's been lifting between 3 and 6 years or something like that. 2 to 4 times a week stimulation frequency is probably best for each major muscle group. That means you can train your chest and back and maybe legs twice a week, and maybe your biceps, shoulders, calves, triceps, maybe 3, even 4 times a week, and that's a real good start for most. There's some leeway and diversity there, but the idea that you should train it once a week is just really not very well supported. So you can train the larger muscle groups 2 times a week, maybe 3 times a week, but the smaller ones, biceps, medial delts, rear delts, calves, you can train 3, maybe 5 times a week, and that's a good start for many individuals. Is there a diversity there? Totally. You can squeeze it more towards a low frequency and more towards high frequency. But if you're religiously defending 1 time a week for every muscle, you're not going to have a lot of backing either in the scientific literature or from a lot of practical experience. For the last point here, if you're interested in expanding your frequency of training, okay, so you watch this video, you're convinced, maybe you're gonna get away from the bro split that you're doing now. You're training 1 muscle group every week now, so okay, Dr. Israetel, you got me, science and all this stuff. I'm gonna try higher frequency training. Here's a really big deal. Your total weekly volume should stay about the same, so when you make a change to high frequency, take your 1 big session of legs or whatever and split it into 2 smaller sessions, usually slightly asymmetrical inside. So have a bigger leg session and a smaller leg session, give that a shot, but the total number of sets should be about the same. You'll find that you'll recover better, so eventually you'll be able to up the total sets, but don't confuse this. Don't say high frequency training, this is good. I do 20 sets for quads on Mondays now, every Monday. Now I'm just gonna do 20 sets on Monday and Thursday. You're gonna overreach like crazy. You can't handle double the volume. This isn't a recipe for handling much more work, though it is for some. It's a recipe for doing it more frequently so that you're always benefiting and never costing yourself. So if you wanna transition to a higher frequency program, take all the number of work sets you do for every muscle group per week, split it into more training and more sessions, all the work week that you do, and then start from there. And if you find that you recover better, you can up the ante in all the sessions. Don't just add sessions because you're gonna overreach like crazy. We don't want you to do that. We want you to get the best possible results. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Dr. Israetel for Renaissance Periodization and Juggernaut Training Systems.